Hey Josh,
Hey, how's it going?
good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview.
Likewise, thank you. Thanks for taking the time. What
Absolutely.
time
I'm
is it
glad.
over there?
Oh, sorry.
What time are you on over there?
It's 11:32 a.m.
There you go. You're walking up then.
Oh, yes. Oh, awesome. Well, again, thank you very much for taking the time to do this interview. It's great to be able to talk to you and talk about this amazing new album that's been out for just about a month now with A World on Fire. And it's great to see the reception that I've seen for it so far. It's such an amazing concept, and I love where the band's going with this. And it's great to see that the album did come out in the light of day in 2021.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Really kind words. Yeah, we're really proud of it. We always thought that we had something special in the can, but releasing it and seeing the reception that it's had is just mind blowing. And we seem quite lucky that we released it when it's been released. Just as in our part of the world, things are starting to open up again, and we're starting to see the return of live shows. So it's just great timing, and we're just super stoked to tour with it.
Yeah, that is such a great thing to see that too. And, hopefully with more of the shows and festivals and everything that's going on, having these songs being able to be played in that live setting, because this is such a great album to listen to as a record, from start to finish, just an amazing concept, the way it should be heard. But being able to hear these songs in that live setting is going to be incredible.
Yeah, we always pride ourselves on our live sound. We always say that if you like our record, come check us out live because we're a completely different animal when it comes to playing live. Um, we are firm believers in that music is meant to be heard live, not just on your stereo. So if we're playing a show near you, please do come down and experience it for yourself.
Oh, absolutely. So with that in mind, I mean, obviously with the debut album getting such great traction and now seeing where you guys are at now with this album, I mean, how are you guys handling it right now with like the progression of the band and like seeing the popularity of the band rise?
It's a strange one because writing and recording an album in the middle of a pandemic when everything else has just like closed their doors and everyone's shut away from the rest of the world was quite a odd experience. You're almost like writing just to get all that shit out, all that negative feeling, all that, weird situation we were all in. And then for the world to start opening up again and being able to play live and see the reception is just quite mind blowing. We played our first show, our album launch, first show in 18 months. And woke up the next morning with a bad head and thinking, was that like a fever dream? Like, did that actually happen? Did we have a show with a full house of people, going nuts at our music? And yeah, it happened. And we just it just feels like a dream right now to be able to tour with it and to have that reception and from the fans, from press, and being able to just play live shows again. It's just absolutely mind blowing.
Oh
It
yeah,
almost
I
feels just like we're just in this fever dream for the next few months.
Oh yeah, and I can totally imagine when you first got on the stage and you just started in with the very first note and just like knowing that there's a crowd in front of you. You're not just in a rehearsal space, you're not just at home practicing, like you're actually playing a live show again for the first time in a year and a half. And knowing that people are enjoying the music that you're making and they didn't forget about you and they've been waiting to see you. It's just like as a musician, that's one of the greatest feelings you can have is when you go to a show and know that the people are there to see you.
It is indeed. It's the greatest feeling in the world. I would say it's better than any drug, better than any high. It's just being on stage, playing music, and getting that absolute rush. And especially after being locked away for so long. Just going back to that, it just feels like we can never take anything for granted. It could all be taken away from us like that. So just got to enjoy every minute.
Oh, absolutely. And, kind of referencing back to the album as well, too, it's just like seeing where you guys are at right now, the progression of the band since the debut album, and just like seeing the anger that's really coming through on this album, but also that positivity as well, too. It's like, I really love how you guys are able to manage all of these different kinds of emotions that can happen, but it also has that great positive spin on it as well too, because there's a lot of people that can go through so many of the things that are talked about between these albums, and knowing that other people are going through them and other people are able to get out on the other side of it when it comes to like vices or anything like that, it's such a great thing to see.
Thanks. Yeah, I really appreciate that. At the time we started writing lyrics for the album in summer 2020, it was a really bleak time. Not just the pandemic, but fires were raging across California, Australia, Southern Europe, many other places, and at the same time, life as we knew it had been flipped upside down and torched in a dumpster fire. So, in both a literal and figurative sense, our world was on fire. And that was a catalyst if we ever needed one. That's why we called the album World on Fire. It was a literal and figurative sense. And we do want to convey that positivity as well, that it's not all bleak and it's not all doom, that there is a way out if only we want to change it. So I'm appreciated that you picked it up on that.
Oh yeah, and I really felt like the album, especially like right now where things are kind of in that transition period where in some areas of the world we're starting to get back in the lockdown and in other areas it's starting to open back up. There's so many mixed feelings that are going on right now, and having an album that can really show off like the anger of the world, but also showing what's on the other side of that as well too. I think it's really needed right now.
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that. It's uh, would I say that the pandemic sharpened our focus on this topic? I think it's fair to say that was definitely a factor. You know, we just felt that this environmental catastrophe that's coming our way will cause so many more deaths than COVID, and the solution be far more complicated than just a shot in the arm. So we all lost our shit during this pandemic, and but what's coming up next is so fucked up. We don't know. We won't know what hit us. Um, so we felt we wanted to write about it, and it's not just it's not just negativity about it. We wanted to put forward a positive message around it. We normally revel in ambiguity, and we believe in leaving some room for interpretation. Spoon feeding our listeners has never really been our style, but for this record, we really felt we wanted to be blunt and direct. We wanted everybody to know what this is about.
Yeah, and I really think it worked out in that way as well too. I mean with everything that's talked about and everything that we're going through right now, I mean, I think we really need those blunt reasoning that's going on right now, because there is so much ambiguity that's going on within the world right now. I mean, there's so many people that seem to be lost or not listening to reason or not trusting other people. So when you do
Bang
have
on.
like those blunt answers that are going on, I think that is very beneficial.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm in complete agreement with you, and I'm glad you said that. And you mentioned the word trust there. You mentioned that people are feeling lost and they don't know what to believe. Um, it's a very scary time for a lot of people out there. So I can totally empathize with that.
Oh, for sure. So, thinking about that as well too. I mean, obviously we're still in the midst of it, but we hopefully we're getting to see the other side of what's going on right now. But like when you're in the midst of writing like this, when you're not in writing mode, like how have you been like during this pandemic? Like has obviously I gotta imagine that songwriting has been able to help so much and be very cathartic. But how is it on the other side of that too? Like when you're not writing, how are you holding up?
It's tough. I spent most of the pandemic, just locked up at home on my own, and I'm not a person that deals very well with isolation. I'm very much an extrovert. I like to be around people. I like to be socializing. I like to be having a party with people and surrounded by the people you love. So it was tough. And you just got to focus on stuff that gets you through the day. Um, and music is one of them. Certainly, there's good and bad ways to get through the day, but music is definitely a good one. So having that duty, that obligation to write the album, because we booked ourselves into the studio before we wrote a single song and before this pandemic had hit. So we knew we were going to record the album on this day. And then all this happened, and I thought, well, just got to pull my finger out my ass and do something, because we've got the studio time booked. We can't let people down. We can't let the label down and fans down. So that kind of gave us a focus, to put our heads out our asses and do something positive during a really difficult time.
Oh, for sure. And, when you have like a goal that you are able to work on, whether it's at home or in the rehearsal room or whatever the case is, when you're able to have a goal like that, like you being able to write songs, being able to get the structures down, and then being ready to be able to record an album like that. I mean, it really helps when you're feeling that isolation or something like that, when you're able to just get your mind off of any kind of loneliness or any kind of thoughts that can happen from the pandemic. When you're able to sit down and play, it's just like it's such a good distraction. And I gotta imagine, like you said, not letting the people down, not letting the fans or the label or other bandmates down. I mean, having that fire underneath you, knowing that you had time that you needed to get into the rehearsal room. I mean, did that help with creativity at all, or did that feel like a setback, or how was that?
You mean being locked up for
Yeah,
creativity, or
yeah.
yeah, that's a tough one. I always make a joke that it's really tough to be a great musician and to write a good album if you've never had a hard time in life. If you've had an easy ride right from when you were born through to adulthood, it's really hard to write music that means something, because I always feel that out of great pain comes great art. So um, definitely being locked up for all this time really spurred us on to write the best album that we could have written, and it is the best thing that we've ever released, by far. Would it have been as good an album if we didn't go through that shitty period? I don't think so. I think if we've had a great year, as society and as individuals and as a band, our album wouldn't be half as powerful and half as hard hitting as it is now.
Yeah, that is such a great point. And there is that essence of authenticity that really comes from when you feel vulnerable, when you're not having everything going perfect, when you haven't had hardships in life, when you're able to structure that in some kind of way when it comes into art, that authenticity really comes through. And it there's so many people that can relate to it, and that's why I relate to the album so much. I mean, what with mental health struggles that I go through, and just like seeing all the different ways that people handle them, whether it's different vices, whether it's isolation, whether it's more tragic means. I mean, there's so many different ways to be able to handle the hardships of life, good and bad. And when you know other people are going through that too, and you make it an art, it really makes it cathartic for whoever's making it and for whoever is enjoying the art as well.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I really appreciate the openness and the comments. It's yeah, I mean, our debut album explored themes of addiction and mental health struggles, whilst this new record delved into the looming environmental disaster as a whole. So we always knew we wanted to write an album on the topic of environmental disaster and the impending apocalypse, but perhaps it wasn't a given that we'd write it as a second album, but we would have done it at some point. It's always been a passionate and sensitive topic for us, and myself especially. But the way that things worked out in the world, it just meant it felt like the right time. It's like, this is the moment that we're going to write this album.
Oh, it really was the perfect time to be able to do it too. I mean, it's just the perfect negative storm to be able to get everything out there. I mean, between, so many groups fighting against each other, people not agreeing with science, and, just like using personal beliefs over science, and
Oh
in
yeah,
of course the overall world too. I mean, when it comes to pollution, when it comes to destroying the environment that we have in the world, getting rid of the fossil fuels, and what's going to be happening after that. I mean, there's so many different aspects of what you can take, and the destruction of what could be humankind and everything that's left on the earth. And, again, just like I was saying before, it's like when you can make something like that and know other people can be inspired by that, they feel the same way, and it could change even just one person. I mean, that's such a great thing to be able to accomplish.
yeah, that's awesome. Thanks so much, man. It's funny. One of the songs on the album, "The Warmth," deals with that particular topic that you just mentioned there, and that is when people, for some reason, they latch onto all these, conspiracy theories, and like you said, the death of scientific expertise and the respect for that. And why do people latch onto those kind of ideas? You know, what makes them believe that nonsense? And during a time like we're going through at the moment, that's particularly relevant, but also what's coming around the corner with environmental disaster. You know, you'll get people that I think people don't deal well with chaos. They don't deal well with the idea that this shit just jumped from a virus that jumped from a bat and infected humans and caused chaos. They don't like that idea. They want to believe that it was created in a lab and that it's all a plan to by governments to fuck us over. But you got to try and get into that mindset. Why do people believe that crap? And it's the same with the topic of the record. Environmental disaster. You'll get the same people who claim to be experts in all this stuff, and they're not, and they'll claim to be experts in climate change and the environment. When it comes to it's next. And I've always been fascinated by that. Always been fascinated by conspiracy theories and why people believe the things that they do.
Yeah, and it's such a deep rabbit hole that you can really go down too. And it's just like when people don't want to accept the answers that are right in front of them, the mind wants to be able to try to create something that they can find to be more tangible.
Absolutely.
But yeah, and it's just so funny over here in the States. Like the biggest things is either the government is trying to control you or the government doesn't care about you. It has to be one of those two things if you believe in those things, because you can't have it both ways where they want to control you and they don't care about you. I mean, because
Exactly.
yeah, it's just like it's so strange with how people go about that, and they don't want to listen to other sides. They just want to believe what they think sounds right. So when it comes to conspiracies like that, and there's so many of them that are just growing every single day, and it just leads the world into more chaos because people don't, like I was mentioning before, it's like people don't trust people anymore. They don't trust sources anymore. They don't trust people who are, specifically uh, spend their life trying to figure out these kinds of things. They just don't trust them anymore because they were told not to.
You're right. You're right. I'm glad we're talking about this. It's a particular topic of mine that I'm particularly passionate about. And there's definitely a lack of trust. People just don't know who to believe anymore, and I can kind of empathize with that. I used to get really angry with them. Now I just feel sorry for them. Because it must be a really scary place to be to believe all that stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And, relating that into the music world, I mean, I'm seeing so many musicians that are falling to COVID right now because they refuse to get a shot and they refuse to believe this is anything more than a flu or just a cough. And just like seeing all these bad things that are happening just in the music world, let alone the entire world. It's just like it's so sad to see that too. And it's hard not to have that anger with it, but also like you mentioned, just like feeling sorry for them, feeling sorry that they can't comprehend that the life works this way, that viruses latch onto people to try to survive just like we're trying to survive, but we can also cause destruction when it comes to that as well too. And a lot of people don't think about that when they're surviving, and they just think about themselves rather than the great whole.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's a really good point. At the end of the day, it's just an organism trying to survive and killing everything around it, much in the same way that we are. You know, yeah. The problem is that the fix to our solution, I guess, is going to be much more complicated than a shot in the arm, unfortunately. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and like you said, it's going to be more than just a shot in the arm, and it I mean, it's going to take like a whole global rethinking for that to be able to happen, and I don't think that's going to happen in any short amount of time or anything like that. I think it's going to take years upon years, and sadly, I personally believe it might be too late to be able to change a lot of things by the time that needs to be done.
Yeah, it's very sad to hear, but it's hard to disagree with you. It's I think we're in this for the long run. It's been what, like 18 months, 2 years now that we have to do this. I think we're not out of the woods yet. It's going to go on and on for some time. We just got to knuckle down and get together and work together to fix it.
Very much. So, thinking about that as well too. I mean, obviously with being able to survive through all this, being able to put out art that people are able to latch onto. I mean, do you see like a positive outcome to come out of this, or are you feeling that negativity still? Like, where are you personally right now?
I think so. I think out of every great tragedy, when you come out the end, there's always the potential for humanity, for society, to come out better. Yeah, we keep hearing this thing about build back better after all this has gone. When I keep hearing about when we had the pandemic in 1920 with Spanish flu, that the next 10 years after that was just like life just got better for so many people so much quicker out of it. So I do see the positive side of it. I think that every catastrophe, every obstacle that you have gives you a chance to improve yourself. And if you always had it good in life, then you never really. It's hard to better yourself because you've had the whole life put in front of you on a silver platter. So I'm a firm believer. I try to keep positive out of it. So that what you said before was that negative storm. I try to keep positive throughout all of it and try to work on just bettering myself and refining our art. And if nothing else, if this shit goes on for another 2 years, we're just gonna have to release another couple of great albums.
I love that spin on it. And, I think that can create great change in and of itself, because when people are enjoying your music, whether they've been a fan since you started, whether they're just checking out the album now, whether they're checking you out now just because of this interview, whatever the case is, and you're able to inspire people with those lyrics, you're able to inspire them with great music behind it. And, hopefully when we get to that point, we're able to have more and more shows being able to see you guys live. I think even just those little sparks right there can create that positivity and change things for a positive way as well too. It might be small, but it should not be diminished at all.
I think so. I think so. It's you know, I get it's not the same for everyone. Like when this thing hit us, that a lot of people found it really difficult. But you just got to keep your head above water and use it as a springboard for creativity to try and improve yourself. Something, latch on to something. Just don't hit the drink and drugs too hard.
Oh yeah, and especially when you do suffer through any kind of mental health things, whether it's addiction, whether it's depression, anxiety, so many different things. I mean, it can be so easy to latch onto those vices, and the self-destructive things that can really come about it, because you really don't know any other way to go about things. But when you are able to in any way able to see that there is more to life than just trying to numb the pain with drugs and alcohol and whatever negative vices there are out there, you can see those beauties in the world right now. Even if the world is going through so much negative turmoil, there is a lot of great things that sadly just aren't being talked about enough right now, with people being able to help each other, and charity, and so many great things that are going on out there. And it's just like, hopefully one day more people are able to see that and appreciate it, and focus like anything that can go from uh, going wrong with vices, and being able to change that into a positive way.
Yeah, couldn't agree more with your comments, man. And I'm glad you're so positive about it. I just hope that everyone else can see it that way.
Yeah, and it's taken a long time for me to be able to see that too, and sometimes I still struggle with it myself, battling mental health stuff for the last couple decades, and just like feeling so negative and having like a honestly having suicidal thoughts in the past. And it's like it's hard not to feel the negativity that's going on in the world right now, especially the more that you go online and social media and you just see people battling with each other in comments and posting links to things that may not even be true, and people just reading headlines and clickbaits and everything that's going on with that. You can see all of that turmoil, and sometimes it's just good to be able to step back and just try to focus that energy on what else is out there. It's just like, because we are more than just what we're showing off online and just bickering with each other, and it has that way in the past, and I really hope that we can get there again in the future.
Yeah, well, it's thanks for sharing that, man. That's really open and honest of you. And just the fact that we can talk about this in the way that we are, means that we've come such a long way to 10, 20, 30 years ago. And I think that's something to be grateful for at the very least, you know, and that's something I think that's one of the positives that's come out of all this mess, is that this mess has made people lock themselves away, sometimes be, you know, against their free will, and has really made people want to reach out to each other and just check on them and say, you know, how are you doing? How are things with you? And that heightened awareness, I think, can only be a positive thing.
Yeah, I do as well too. And it's only taken me within the last few years to really be open about these things, because I've seen so many people that are struggling, and I see so many like negative things that happen, whether they're dying of drug addiction, whether they're committing suicide, whether these things are. And it's because mental health isn't taken nearly as seriously as it is physical health. So a lot of people just hide the problems that they have because they feel so ashamed, rather than like someone having a broken arm and you have a cast where people can see what you're going through with that pain,
Exactly.
rather than being able to open up your mind and see everything that's going on with that. So it's just like the more people that are able to talk about the problems that they're going with addiction, with mental health struggles, with how they feel about the world, the more that it can convince others that they don't need to hide their feelings, and they're able to like be honest with each other, and hopefully not have to have a premature end just because they were afraid to reach out.
Yeah, definitely agree with you, man. It's it's just because it's not physically visible doesn't mean it's happening. Like you say, we just got to talk about it more and surround yourself by people who are willing to listen. That's the key thing.
Absolutely. And that's why I'm so happy that you guys tackle the issues that you do, whether it's more on the inside, or like on this album, being able to show the outside world and everything that's going on with it. And, whether the music is full of chaos, whether it's heavier, whether it's moodier, whether no matter where you go in the next direction with the songwriting and everything that goes on, I can't wait to see where you guys are going to be going from here. But the fact that you guys do tackle what you do, I think it does open that conversation up, whether it's a little spark or a huge fire, depending on how much more momentum that you guys are able to get. I just love the fact that you tackle the issues that you do. You're able to put out such killer music behind those issues as well too. And just like within the last half hour of us talking, just being able to go back and forth, be honest about how we're feeling, whether it's on the inside or the outside world, and, music in general. I mean, these are all things that should be talked about and, enjoyed or trying to make better. And I thank you very much for taking the time to be able to talk to me about all of that.
Oh, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. Some really deep and honest conversations there, and not like a lot of the interviews, I have to say. It's to get stuff that really matters. So, thank you for your time, and thanks for sharing all your thoughts with me. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, absolutely. And, with that, it's just like all of this is off the top of my head. There's no script, there's nothing. I just love being able to have that stream of consciousness, like a real conversation, because that means so much more than me reading off a script, not actually listening to the answers that you give and just waiting to be able to ask the next question. I will never enjoy that kind of stuff. I love being able to have real conversations, whether we're just talking about favorite bands or we're talking about real world issues like we've been talking about. I mean, being able to just have that real conversation means so much. And yeah, again, just like being able to talk about talk about a great album from a great band, it's been a great time.
Great, thank you so much. I feelings mutual. It's been great to just have an open chat, and hopefully we can do it again sometime over a beer at a show sometime.
Oh, I would love that. When you guys are able to make it over to the States, or if I'm able to make it over to Europe or the UK, or, whatever the case is, or even just for the next album, just like being able to have that talk. I'm really looking forward to it.
Same here. Thanks a lot, man. Look after yourself.
Not a problem. You have a great rest of the day.
And you. Take care.
You too.